Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
The Blackout Show is back. Baseball is back. Pitchers and catchers and hitters and everybody's down in Arizona, down in Florida. Spring training has arrived. White Sox baseball. Get excited. I'm Slavko Bekovic, joined by Chris Gonzalez, Ozzie Guillen Jr., and Justin Lee. Season 2 of The Blackout Show. Boys, how does it feel? You ready for some baseball?
Yes. Yes.
No, you're the only ones that are excited.
No,
We suck again.
Don't do this to me.
I've been baseball activated for a while now, so I'm ready. I'm mid-season form already.
Junior, you've been around the game for like a month straight.
2 months straight. Got Ozzie Guillen back on the horse here in Venezuela. Won the league. Won the Caribbean Series. Went on a 39 and 15 run.
Damn.
It was wild. Yeah, it was wild.
That's it. That's pretty good.
No,
we'll get to more of that later in the show. Ozzie Jr., you've been watching the man, Ozzie Sr. in person, still doing it. And Ozzie's so kind to join us live from Venezuela down at the vacation home. You got Pop sending us pictures and videos down on the beach, and life is miserable, drinking coconut water and rum. It must be a tough life being a Guillen. Look, he's frozen. See, we go 30 seconds into the show, and Junior's already lost. Gonzo, what's going on the West Coast?
It's amazing. It's freaking 7:30, and I saw spring training today. We saw Dodgers, Padres, going off today.
You saw a
little
bit more Dodgers today.
A little more Dodgers. Dodgers were
Gonzo, did you watch that game?
Today. Just highlights.
Okay, I was gonna say you are a true fiend for baseball if you actually watch that. What's up, Juan Diego? Joining us in the chat. Caleb, hello. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We got a lot to get to. It's been a hot minute. I think our last episode was when we had Jake Berger, who is now teammates once again with Tim Anderson. It seems.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, let's just start with our early impressions of spring training. Tomorrow, I think, is the Cactus League debut. Friday already. We're here. They just got there and they're going right out. So pitchers and catchers reported last week. Hitters reported a few days ago. Everyone's in the best shape of their life. Everyone's motivated. Pedro Grifol wants the team to play fast. What are your guys' original, reactions to what you've heard so far out of Arizona, out of Camelback Ranch? Justin, I want to start with you because you literally texted us an hour ago saying how much you hate yourself for how much you love this team.
I don't get upset at the White Sox for being losers. I get mad when they lose games. But when I want to just isolate that quote from Pedro Grifol, you want to play fast. At a certain point, we're going to have a lineup of Corey Lee, Mike Moustakas, DeYoung. How much activity on the base paths are you really going to have when you got 60% of your lineup in a traffic jam? It's going to look like 1994 rush hour. So I don't know how he's going to create some traction, but at the end of the day,
you're saying we need more Billy Hamilton,
Lance Johnson, Tim Raines.
How deep are we in? We're 5 minutes in, and we got our first Billy Hamilton reference. So I'm off to a hot start.
You're good. I'm glad that you're excited about the White Sox.
Is Billy Hamilton on the roster? I don't know.
Come on, dog.
I'm
Don't
kidding.
do this.
So fast. It's a Pedro Grifol cult acronym, not cult acronym, but just
It's
something
a Pedro
he's
Grifol cult.
it's something he's preaching to the team. FAST stands for fearless, aggressive, selfless, and technically sound. Junior, I would love to get your thoughts on acronyms and managers who come in trying to come up with like slogans and stuff.
You know what? The White Sox have been known for this. I guess has no longer changed the game. Where was this acronym last year? I think that it really sounds like something that someone would use in a Ponzi scheme, like to really sell an idea, something that I would see in a business, something that I probably would have learned in my MBA. They would have given you a fast acronym on something's, a way to think about the game of baseball, trying to overcomplicate it. And I guess it's a good selling point on words, and they have signs everywhere. Great. I hope Pantera gets it translated to him and to Moncada and to Eloy. Their acronym should be stay healthy, play better baseball. Keep it simple. This team on paper, what Chris Getz is trying to do, get more athletic in the sense of like being able to play better baseball, and what they did on there defensively, it looks like it's been better. But I'm gonna say it, man. I'm tired of the BS. And the beat writers keep sitting there and just looking at it, and it's like, it's BS. It's BS. I'm sorry. You can't listen to the audios from last year and then literally listen to the audios for this year and then say like, why, like, and just compare them. And it's like, it's BS. And it's such BS that my brain literally stopped and it wouldn't even let me analyze the players because I know the players in there, they're making fun of it. They're like, what is this? And the guys that have been there before, and in spring training, all you need to do is have a couple dinners and lunches, and you get guys talking that have been there, talking to the newer guys, and you can smell BS. And right now, there is no BS because I remember here last year when we had the show, and everybody was saying that Pedro was the greatest manager of all time, and he was going to kick everybody's butt, and we had everybody tweeting in Chicago like, "Wow, they're doing all these different drills, and I can feel the energy. It's so different." It's the same thing. First week of spring training, everybody loves each other. Everybody is, big kumbaya and everybody's doing great. Yeah. You have to go out and play. So again, I hope that marketing and that PR and that public relations type of aspect of getting to the game, I hope it stays there. And I really hope that they play better baseball. And I've been a person that has always said you can lose the game the right way, meaning you're losing to develop and you're losing to build a better franchise in the future. Because if you really don't see that in the first two months of the season, why keep them here? I'm being honest. Like everyone's not. Literally, people are still timing Chris Getz on. Well, you're the new GM. You've made some changes, and there's a big but you still have this person as a manager. So I'm still stuck on that. I really thought that I was going to just jump in and focus on the players, but I can't when I listen to the stuff that he says on the air. And then you have people like Merkin, for example, like. They sit there and they're bobbing their heads like, wow, I'm really listening to this. And I'm like, and I know these guys personally. I'm like, no one's calling this out. And again, this is one of the acronyms. My favorite one before I get off the topic was everyone went crazy about them sliding into bases. Okay, wow, they're sliding into bases. I thought Eloy's sliding. And I was like, well, number one, I hope he doesn't get hurt. But everyone slides, okay? Everyone's been sliding. There used to be a rule back in the day where you cannot start games until players would actually start sliding. That was like a check mark. And I asked Ozzie this to see if it was true, a check mark of our players like ready to go. You're only sliding if you're hitting doubles or you're breaking up double plays, or that's something that you're like learning in Little League. It's like you go through the routine, but it's not that big of a deal. You don't win or lose games because my team's a better sliding team than your team. Okay. So I still go back to this. I still see guys in the roster that need to stay healthy. And we need to see what they can produce in spring training. And there's a lot of moves on this roster that are going to be spring training is going to be telling. I feel bad for Oscar Colas. He's not even being mentioned, where he was the future of this team in right field. You got Mike Moustakas. They got signed. Now what does that mean for Getz?
We gotta go pull some receipts for Gonzo this time last year because I feel like there was some Colas promises.
No, there is. There was. There's a lot of promises. That's my take.
I can't help you, Gonzo.
It's very big. It's big
sorry.
kumbaya. And it's been big kumbaya. You got right now, I feel like we got 5 Cy Youngs. And we got a bunch of guys that are going to be competing for the league MVP and the manager of the year. But I think that's every Major League Baseball team. So you got to ease into it and then wait for that. But again, it's a big PR. Everybody talks. We all get good. We're going to improve. Their magic number for the over-under is 65 games. You win 66, you're technically doing better. So
Caleb's saying under 65.
I'm taking the over.
I'm taking, you know what? I'm still debating this.
Me and the OGs, we're taking the over.
65 is a very low number, Jay. I don't even know how you guys realize, like 65 games is not high at all. Like this is, again,
look at the pitching staff. I just don't see it. Even if the offense clicks, I just have a hard. There's so much would have to go right for them not to lose 100 games. That's the crazy part. Like Gonzo, you've set this imaginary over under at 78 for various reasons, but like like Gonzo, like be honest here. What do you like? What's the ceiling for this team to you?
I'm gonna say about.
You don't even have to give a number. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm just saying, like, give me a ballpark. Like, what makes this a successful season?
I think they're going to be between 69, 72-ish.
Nice.
That's not bad.
No, but the worst part is we have to go through another rebuild and watch another like revamp.
But it's going to happen anyway. There's nothing that happens this season that doesn't result in another rebuild. Like, I just don't see it.
And what I'm stuck here is just getting excited for whatever that core is that's going to be moving forward that Chris Getz is going to build off of. You know, I mean, I don't think Cease is going to be extended. So, like, my hope is, like, Nastrini, what's this kid going to do when he actually hits the big leagues? Is he going to be a part of that? We're not going to see, you know, a guy like Noah Schultz until another, you know, year or two. So, like, I don't know about him. Come back to the offensive side. I mean, I guess you could also put Jake Eater in there too, as far as pitching goes, but that's really about it. And then you're looking on the other side.
Potential. It's all just
it's all
guys
potential.
who
I mean,
might be okay.
And I'm waiting for is Vaughn going to finally step up and have that, you know, that eye-opening year that we thought we would get out of him. I know we screwed up his development from the get-go, but like, you know, is Robert going to digress? Like,
hey, I'm not gonna lie, guys.
Normally we regress to
Justin Fields territory right now.
No, stop it. We're not going to go there.
He might need to creep up on Josh Fields territory to be a little bit better. You know what I'm saying?
Well, did you guys see the article on where are the prospects now from 2018? And
well, what the one the White Sox had like 17 of those top 100.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not just a White Sox problem. It's the White Sox fan base is so caught up on the word prospects and the potential prospects. And when you see teams, you may have one or two guys hit. When you're looking at the White Sox list, like they're thinking like 7 or 8 guys are going to hit, like are going to click and be on the championship team. So that's the reality of it. And the part where it's concerning is, you get a guy like Oscar Colas, okay, let's say he's not going to be the everyday right fielder, but you potentially can trade him for something in the future. But you're not even considering him to be the starting right fielder, where you go sign guys that are technically considered over the hill in on paper. So what are you telling the rest of the league? Tim Anderson, for example, I think that one of the reasons that Tim Anderson had a hard time signing, regardless of what anybody thinks about his off the field issues, was that they're like, wait, the White Sox don't want to sign you and they don't have a shortstop? Like, let's dig deeper. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think Tim Anderson was worth $14 million, but I definitely think that Tim Anderson is definitely worth more than $4 million. And I think the Marlins got a bargain with him because he's worth more than that, considering the fact of who the White Sox signed for the amount of money that they signed that person for to play shortstop every day. So those are messages that you're sending out to the league, where you can have prospects, but you still have to be able to keep your prospects hot enough that you can be able to move them. And not say, well, I'm not going to play them, and everybody still think, well, these prospects are amazing. The Sox won't play them. You know, they're horrible. They just don't play them because they're so good, and they want to save them for us. So I think that in the market, that the values of players' value, and Oscar Colas is going through that. And I think the White Sox really need to be careful with that, because when they bring guys up, when they talk about how they're going to perform, I think Eric Crochet right now is another situation like that. One day he's a starter, one day he's a reliever. Oh, he's a starter, but he's only has 75 innings. I'm like, I wasn't the greatest person at math, but that's what, 6 starts? You know, the math doesn't have to be there. So those are things that I think affect the market in the future. and again makes the whole like when are the Sox going to be good question a really big question mark.
So
go ahead.
No, I just want to say, like, think about this for a second, guys. The Miami Marlins are a better fit for Tim Anderson because they at least have a Jake Berger in the lineup. When you put Tim Anderson next to Luis Arias on top of all the other athletes they got in the lineup, that's a good fit for TA. When you're looking at our lineup, it's a wasteland. It's an OPS wasteland. There's no protection in the lineup. You can't create runs, create RBI opportunities for your sluggers unless they're hitting the ball over somebody's head. At a certain point, you gotta take a step back and look at the White Sox. Like, they're trying to create runs off of talent when we can't even create runs off of just playing smart, in-tune baseball. Like, when are we going to get back to having some foundational values to where instead of a bloop and a blast, how about we can move that, get them over and get them in? When are we going to get back to that?
This is one of the things that confuses me about, like, Reinsdorf's, I guess, reasoning for going with Chris Getz as one of the internal hires. Like, what development have we seen? Like, what? I mean, outside of the trades that were made, you know, through last season, basically to revamp this prospect pool. I mean, it was trash. Like, the minor league system was in bad shape. And, like, what have you seen develop that comes into the major leagues? And is this either a finished product or close to it? We talked so long when the Twins were whooping the hell out of everybody else in the division about the identity that they had. They knew what they were looking for in a player. They developed that style through the minor leagues. And when they came to the major leagues, they were ready to play Minnesota Twins baseball. To Juan 100%. Diego's point, they don't develop anything. Like, TA is an example, but they drafted a raw athlete and developed him into who he was, but he worked his ass off to become the hitter he is. He's still an average at best defender. And I do think there's room for him. I don't know if it's a great fit. I think if he was a great fit, he probably would have signed before February 22nd. But if you have Arias 1 and TA 2 and they're both hitting 320, I mean, you could do a lot worse setting the table for your boppers at 345. But I think it's crazy to me that, you know, like, Chris Getz was lauded for, you know, it's going to be a seamless transition and it takes one less year to fix this and we don't have to rebuild, blah, 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 whatever Jerry kind of figured out to say about it. But it made zero sense to me. Chris Getz has proven nothing. And until we see some of these prospects that Chris Gonzalez is in love with all the time, like, we don't know. And we can't say for sure he's developed anything, or that, you know, his track record as a overseeing the minor leagues, like, really meant anything. I just, to your point earlier, Junior, I cannot see Pedro Grifol managing this team next year. I just don't see a way.
I want to add real quick with what you were just talking about with Getz, because, you know, in that system, yeah, we did, I guess, I don't want to say time it right, but we did have Coulson in place to make that decision on Tim. But that's the only position that I'm looking at that I'm like, okay, I'll give you a clap.
Coulson's not playing in the major leagues on opening day.
But I'm saying, like building forward, you know, in the line.
I'm gonna.
But let me finish here, because that's the only position. Because I'm like third base. I'm like, okay, you guys know me. I'm big on Brian. But besides those two spots, I'm like, we don't have enough pitching depth. And this is the biggest part for me is through the past, 5+ years, we still have nothing going forward for second base and right field. Like, I just can't believe that we did that internal hire, like you said.
I'm gonna say something right here, and it's not gonna be popular. Gonzo just said we ruined Andrew Vaughn's development. Complete BS. Because he played outfield does not mean that they hurt his development. Okay, playing outfield and hitting are two different things. Miguel Cabrera broke into the big leagues playing outfield and played there. And
that's not a fair comparison, because Miguel Cabrera is one of 50,000 players.
Okay.
He's Miguel Cabrera.
Okay, what about Phil Nevin?
Soccer.
Look at Phil Nevin.
Again, like, those are two extreme examples of where it didn't matter.
And that's what I'm saying is, how good are your prospects? Because if Montgomery was that good, as everybody's saying that he is, and Ramos is that good as everybody's saying that he is, and the Schultz kid is as good as everybody's saying that he is, they'd be in the big leagues right now. Why? Because they're usually not in the big leagues because there's somebody there that's way better than you, and you can't break through. So if this was the 2005 White Sox and you have Paul Konerko at first base, and then you have Jermaine Dye, and then you have guys that are hitting 30 home runs plus a year, and you can't crack the lineup just because there's no space for you, and the starting rotation's got 5 guys that are like 15-game winners, and you're like, wow, this rookie can't really make it in because there's no place for him to play there. But talking about an opportunity, if those guys were as good as they say and they're being marketed as they are, they'd be playing every day in the big leagues. There wouldn't be we need to develop him one more year. It's like, hey, man, this guy's good enough to go into the show and develop right now. So that's what I'm talking about, where we're overvaluing these guys. I'm not saying Andrew Vaughn has to be that, but I think Andrew Vaughn's developing perfectly. I just don't think that he is the superstar, the Hall of Fame type of player. They're saying that he's good. I think that he's good. I think he's a good player. You look at his numbers, I think that we're setting expectations. Like we're looking at these prospects like he's going to be Frank Thomas, and you're going to be an everyday big league player. That's a big difference, guys.
The problem is that he's at first base. He's at a premium position for run producing, for home runs, for high OPS, blah blah blah, and he's like middle of the pack at best. Like he's not giving you the power. Like he's just average. Like, and when you spend the number 3 overall pick on just average at first base, that's a fail. Like, I'm sorry, that's a failure. I like Andrew Vaughn. I don't mind him. I think if he's your number 6 or 7 hitter in a really good team, you're just fine. Like he's serviceable. He can hit for better average. Like if he had some better protection, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the COVID year, I think did screw him. I agree with you, Junior, to an extent that I don't think the outfield stuff mattered that much. You would hope that he was still getting enough reps at first base, knowing that he was ultimately going to be a first baseman long-term. But your point is basically maybe it's not the development, it's the talent. But again, you have to blame the organization then for not finding the right talent.
Absolutely. But absolutely. The talent with a combination of development. I'm going to be honest with you. And when we go to the development part of it, I think Tim Anderson right now is just is God-given talent, meaning his God-given talent has gotten him to be this successful. I really don't think that they developed in the sense of like they made him better.
I think we got lucky. We got lucky with TA.
No, correct. And I think
his hard work outdid what the development was from the organization.
Correct.
I agree with
so
you
guys, he might go to the Marlins and he might be one of these guys that he finds and they start working with him. And obviously TA has to buy into this where they can make him into a Gold Glove defensive player. Why? Because he has the given talent, like the physical ability to be able to do that. That's the reality. That's my argument all the time with TA.
Like, think about this. The White Sox could have drafted TA and he could have been Khalil Green, like emotionally, to where when stuff got bad, he kind of secludes himself. Where when stuff get bad for TA on the field, you can tell he just puts his head down and work harder. I'm back in the cage till I got calluses on my hands.
But he did seclude himself in the clubhouse when things were great. Yeah. We've talked about this a lot. When things were great, TA was out there. He was front and center. He was vocal in the spotlight. When things weren't so great, TA disappears. TA doesn't want to talk to the media.
But he wasn't away from the game of baseball.
Sure.
Like Khalil Green separated himself from the game of baseball. Like there's going to be instances, peaks and valleys. Miami is not a finished product as far as a contending baseball team. There's going to be that fork in the road on a 1-year deal where TA is going to be like, what the hell did I get myself into? On top of all the turbulence that he had last year.
Could you imagine if the White Sox had the offseason that the Marlins just did? They did nothing. They didn't sign a human being until Tim Anderson. TA posted this on his Instagram earlier today. That's about as official as it gets. 1 year, $5 million. Junior, like you said, from a financial aspect.
Gavin Sheets liked it.
Okay, good for Gavin. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of guys who have no beef with Tim Anderson. And I'm sure there's guys like Osman and Grandal who are like, I could do better.
And I hope that Grifol does not say anything negative about TA. And again, I
can't see.
I have a way different. And I have a way different view of TA because a lot of people think that his bad season was because of his marital status or issues. To me personally, I've seen guys, do way worse. That's not a crime. It's something that you deal with in your personal level. I think that there was a lot of pressure on him from a marketing standpoint. He was made out to be, this superstar that was a superstar in the making, but they made him a superstar before he got there. So I think that the Marlins move for him. I think it's a season where he can showcase he's done it before. So I think from a talent level, and this is the part where it gets interesting. Okay, whatever people think about Tim Anderson, he was actually one of the guys in that lineup that had a history of producing, and was an actual bright spot, because the guys that they signed, okay, to the Chicago White Sox are not guys that have done that in teams that they've been at before. They're guys that have either at the end of their careers, or guys that have been let go by other organizations because they've given up on them. Organizations that drafted them, organizations that traded for them, and they say, you know what, this guy doesn't really fit us. We're just going to go a different direction. So we have a lot of like projects in that lineup of, you know, could this guy be the next big thing? For example, the young pitcher from the KBO league, Fade. You know,
Fetty,
was
Fetty,
once
Eric Fetty.
Eric Fetty was once
Fetty Wap.
Fetty.
a high talented prospect who was the Nationals' top prospect, came to the big league, got shellackled, literally got just destroyed in the big league level.
Wait, what did you just say?
Slackled.
Shellackled.
Yeah,
Shellackled. Oh, I'm gonna start using that one.
Yeah,
shellackled like Rami.
Got your ass slackled.
But he just got, he got hit around. He goes to the KBO league, does very well, is like the pitcher of the year, the Cy Young of the year, and then he comes back. They give him a huge deal, a deal that, again, it's really big for where he was coming to pitch from. But he's never, again, that's a different league. So let's see how he does again in the big leagues. But everyone thinks that, you got a guy that I just saw today on Twitter that they're comparing him to, he's just as good as Dylan Cease. And I was like, wait a minute, like, this guy was once good. There's trials and tribulation.
Wait, who
but
said that?
You didn't. There was people on Twitter, that they're looking at the rotation of the ball.
Those were bots.
And the horizontal, vertical, the stuff that the kid's doing in the cage when there's not a Dominican trying to take your head off with a bat. Because there's a lot of guys like that. There's a lot of guys that go into the machine, they go into the room, and it looks like they're facing the chubby guy. No, they're facing the chubby guy from Instagram, the guy who just takes King of Juco. It's like they got the King of Juco swinging there. If Juan Soto's not the King of Juco.
You talking about that chunky guy that be in the cage all day?
Yeah,
no, he's talking about the dude with Bauer.
Yeah, with Trevor.
Yeah.
So it's like basically Socko out there with a bat in me. It's like me and Socko decided.
Hank Conger.
Come on,
I'm saying like we're trying to hit. No, I'm saying we're trying to hit. We're not big league hitters. So they're looking at guys like performance based on like rotation and velocity and there's this guy's like shirtless during a batting practice, like a BP. That doesn't translate to a game. Okay, in the game, there's a Dominican who's trying to hit a ball 700 feet from you. There's fans in the stands. There's an umpire. There's energy and adrenaline. So you like that.
Only the Venezuelan can say that. If we said that, we get canceled.
I can say it. I'm just saying though, like we can say we could go. We got Paul Goldschmidt, big honky American. Like there's somebody competing against you. There's a Bryce Harper on the other side of that home plate trying to take you deep. Okay, so all those numbers, they're great. I like them, but you can't say this guy's going to be just as good as this guy because the numbers on the computer when we haven't seen him compete at a big league level.
It's silly season. This is when everyone, like I said, I joked about it when we started. Everyone's in the best shape of their life. Everyone has, learned a new pitch. Everyone has figured out how to lay off the inside fastball, like blah, 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 all this bullshit. Like, I want to give Gonzo a chance. Like, I was writing this down earlier as I prepared because this offseason has been so boring. I had to figure out who the hell is on this team. So I'm looking through the roster. Bro, this bullpen is going to be a bunch of 38-year-olds who are trying to just get traded like in July. So
sounds like 05.
So come on. There was way more. All right, we can get to that later. So in the rotation, Cease looks like to be, he's the opening day guy. Fetty and Kopech are probably in there. And then between Soroka, Tukey, Garrett Crochet, Chris Flexen, you fill out the rotation from there. Maybe Jesse Schultens if he has a great spring. But then you look at this bullpen. Jimmy Lambert, Tanner Banks, Dominic Leone, Jesse Chavez, Corey Knebel, Brian Shaw, Tim Hill, John Brebbia, and Prolander Baroa. This is the pitching staff that those are like pretty much the names that are mostly going to be there opening day. Like, this is the pitching staff we're trotting out this year. And those Dominicans trying to hit it 700 feet might hit it 650 at least off these guys. Gonzo, I'm going to give you your floor now. What else do you have to say about at least the roster makeup as of February 22nd?
Well, I was kind of hoping that we, see Kopech turn a corner, but I'd actually rather see him
He
in
was
the
the number
bullpen.
2 starter, according to you.
Yeah, and that's changed. But again, like I hope for the best for Kopech.
Sure, I do too.
Especially
I appreciate you, Gonzo.
giving away Chris Sale. Like I really wanted to see the most out of Moncada and Kopech. But yeah, I mean, let's just, if he does go back to the bullpen, and again, I hope Crochet, for drafting him in the first round, and I really thought he could be a starter. I hope we can get the most out of him too. But those are guys that could wind up back in the bullpen. And then again, besides Cease, I'm really interested in Nick Nastrini. Pedro's the 2 pitchers he talked about so far when they reported were Cease and Nastrini. And today, when I was listening to Chuck's episode with fan questions to Dylan Cease, one of the things that Cease said that stuck out to me was a question about how has Brian Bannister been, helping him out when Katz has been away. And one thing that I was really interested in that answer, and it was about his changeup, was that Brian felt he should stick to just the stuff he already has, and he shouldn't even worry about the changeup. And I didn't agree with that, just because with his mix, I want to see a different slot besides that, that fastball that can change up the hitters. And that's why I was really hoping that changeup was going to start to develop last season. Because it's so easy to lay off that slider in knuckle curve, that so much drastic drop in those pitches. It's easier to tell the difference between the fastball and those off-speed pitches. But if you bring that changeup into that mix, I feel like it's a whole lot different just battle to face Cease. So when I heard that, I was kind of let down, because we were told that this guy is supposed to be, the next guru to come in and help, this whole situation. And I mean, time will tell, but I'm not really liking what I'm hearing just off of that answer. But again, I also wanted to talk about defense, but I want you guys to talk about the pitching before I get to defense aspect of this.
Well, maybe I just want to say maybe Dylan Cease doesn't have a really effective changeup. Like if you look at Brian Bannister, like when he pitched, he had a good changeup. He used the changeup, cut a curveball mix. So if he can recognize it out of the hand, if it's not working for the pitcher, why would you try to keep adding it to the repertoire? All that's going to do is add debris and raise his pitch count.
Yeah, and because part of it, I mean, you guys had to go back and listen to the soundbite, but it sounded like Cease was really interested to see what Brian what tips he can offer from what he saw from the changeup last season. It sounded like Cease really wanted to go and get more advice from a different source than Katz. But the fact that it seemed like from his perspective of how he answered that question was that Brian just wasn't interested in going down that route at all, and just wants to stick
Maybe
with what
Brian
he has.
Bannister knows that he's probably going to be facing Dylan Cease rather than being his coach soon enough, so he doesn't want to help him develop a changeup.
Ooh, wow, that's deep. That's deep. And talking about real quick, when you mentioned all those guys, and Ozzie was critiqued during the Caribbean series because most people don't realize that Ozzie watches every game for the White Sox because he has to, and he has to cover them, so he knows the team very well.
I would hope he does. He gets paid to talk about
them. Well, I'm just saying, though, he covers the team very well. Other than that, he has 8 years of experience at the Major League Baseball level, and he knows pens and he knows players. And he said, my bullpen in this Caribbean series is better than 75% of the American League Central, and it's definitely better than the bullpen that the Chicago White Sox are taking this year to the big leagues. And everybody was shocked because, again, no one goes in and looks at who's in that bullpen paper-wise. And that's my biggest concern when we're looking at that number. And I think that's the reason why the number is so low at 65, because I think bullpens are the biggest reason when a team is really good, okay, or really bad. It's like a team stays really close to the 6th inning and then that's like when you see the wheels come off. And in this pen, even compared to the pen from last year, which I didn't think they could have gotten any worse, even with the loss of Liam, they go in and now you're like, wow, last year's bullpen looks way stronger on paper, at least, than this bullpen goes in. So not only do you have a manager that showed you that he's not very good at handling a bullpen in year one, which that can improve, but then you have a bunch of guys on paper that have not historically been the greatest pitchers when they've been on their previous team. So unless
I don't agree with you there, because a lot of these guys have had success at the major league level in previous seasons. They're just all old or injured. Like Jesse Chavez, Corey Knebel, Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw, I don't know how his arm stayed on. He's the next Jimmy Cordero if he sticks with this team with
Sean Camp,
Brebbia, Tim Hill, Tanner Banks. Like these guys they're going to get used a lot. And this is a bullpen Chris Getz has assembled to trade at the deadline. None of these guys are long-term fits for the White Sox, despite whatever contracts that they sign. If any of them are decent, Chris Getz is flipping them at this trade deadline to try to bring in some younger talent. Hopefully, Leisure, is it Jordan Leisure, right? The kid that they got last year, they're high on him in the bullpen. You're going to have some of these guys who don't fit in the rotation that work down there. I mean, it's a major league bullpen if the major league bullpen was in 2019.
That's what I mean. It's their older guys, so they're going to get, again, and the other part is you talked about this usage. So I'm more worried about health issues, because when you get guys up there in their 30s, you start having a guy or two start missing from the bullpen, and you have to bring another guy up from the minor league. Again, the minor league doesn't have a lot of depth. There's a lot of names on there, but there's a lot of veteran guys. When you look at it, I think the only thing from a hindsight standpoint, I really hope that the guys that are in that bullpen, if it's going to be Eric Crochet or a lot of the younger guys that are trying to build big league careers, you have a lot of guys with a lot of knowledge in those pens. So I hope that these younger pitchers are actually gravitating to those guys like Chavez and learning from them on how to get ready, how to build a career out of the bullpen, because they've done it for so long and they've been so good at it that, again, those are things that are not measurable that could potentially help you down the line with one of those kids. But they should definitely, if I was them, that's the advice I would give them, because, again, there's a lot of years in the big leagues just, with a lot of age on them.
So, yeah, I really look at guaranteed rate right now as Castle Black from Game of Thrones. You don't want to be there. It's the worst place on the planet. But there are some lessons to be learned, and you can carve out a role and a niche for yourself. I'm looking at guys like Jesse Chavez, Corey Knebel, even Mike Soroka, a young guy in the rotation. This will not be the last stop on your journey. This will not be the last chapter in your book. How are you going to handle it? We look at Touhey Toussaint last year and throw the numbers away due to the circumstances and the environment and habitat around him. He was still able to give us some quality innings for what you were asking. So just imagine if Mike Soroka or Corey Knebel gives us 25 plus saves. There is some value to be had there. Now, that value might not equal to wins and losses, but to Slav and OJ's point, Chris Getz is trying to trade these arms. So if we can get a couple of guys to get into a Matt Latos situation or look like Matt Albers for a couple months, who knows? Maybe Chris Getz could do his best Ryan Poles situation and fleece somebody. But at a certain point, as much as I hate the fact that OJ and Slavko are telling us that my team is going to be shit, this bullpen right now, I would be very surprised if they would have a sub 5 ERA as a collective.
All right, last thing on the pitching staff before we move on. Gonzo wants to talk defense, and we got a couple trades to recap that we haven't talked about since the last trade. This, to me, in a nutshell, sums up what we're about to watch with the White Sox. Number one, when you notice all the spring training pictures and videos and stuff that the White Sox tweet, they have to put a little caption to put the player's name, who they are, to identify it to the fans, because that's how many new faces and old players and stuff there are. One. Number two, I live and breathe White Sox baseball. I have for a long time. If I'm doing this goddamn podcast, it's because I care. Bro, when pitchers and catchers reported and they tweeted this fucking picture, I swear to God. All right. So I know obviously Dylan Cease. I know Crochet because I can see the back of his jersey. I know Martin Maldonado because I can see his face. If Stassi didn't have that little name on his catcher's gear, I would have, just by a process of elimination, guessed it was him. And then I looked at number 40 and I literally had no clue who that was. Like, I know Soroka was really good a while back for the Braves. I know he's had like really good success
It's been tough, Slav.
but it's been a long time. I looked at this picture and I'm like, this is freaking sad. This is Valentine's Day. Pitchers and catchers are reporting. Everyone's supposed to be excited. And I get these freaking guys. Dylan Cease probably won't be here come August 1. We got 2 backup old catchers. We got a guy coming off of multiple arm surgeries. And we got this dude who we got in a 1-for-5 trade for Aaron Bummer.
He's been hurt more than Crochet. Bummer. He's been hurt more than Crochet.
I mean, it's sad, guys. This is sad. This is sad. But hey, let's hope. Let's hope. Let's just hope. That's it. So that's the pitching. Go ahead, Gonzo.
I just want to wrap those trades up. Christian Mania, he was a guy that I was interested in, and I did slide into the bullpen.
This year?
Potentially, depending how spring training went. But when I saw the trade and saw that we got back Dominic Fletcher, I was like, okay, like that will be our right fielder and potentially our third outfielder going forward past 04. So at the end of the day with him, I'm like, you know what? I'll give up a bat for the arm as far as potential goes, because the bat is going to be playing every day, not the pitcher. So I was like, okay. And I do agree with Junior's philosophy of trading arms. So, but for me, it just comes down to value at the end of the day. And I liked that deal. And I can see why Getz pulled the trigger with Mania. However, Gregory Santos, this was a one hell of a kid that he just out.
You have to wake him up in the bullpen. Other than that,
well, I mean, I was annoyed because it sounds like the media. I forgot which beat reporter it was came out with, but at the end of the day, that was already known with the staff that he has a sleep apnea or something. I forgot what it was, the issue, but regardless of that being thrown at him, that's a guy that overproduced in that first year, and both the stuff he had at the end of the year, I was like, all right, like I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to this staff going forward. And this is a guy that you still had 5 years of control on. And again, for me, it comes to value. And if it was me with the Seattle deal, I would have held him to at least the deadline if I'm going to trade him away.
We got good value with that trade.
You could argue that this is like the highest his value would be. Like it's certainly the highest his value has ever been in his career so far.
Yeah, but for the value that got back, I just don't understand it at all.
Bro.
I mean, what are you going to get out of Deluch? Yeah, what are you going to get out of Deluch, bro?
23 and 88 last year in the minors. Come on,
AAA.
So
he's 25.
Gonzo, of all people, no, don't piss me off now. Gonzo, of all people to be talking about minor league players and minor league stats and prospects and blah, blah, blah. Now you're going to say, oh, he did it in AAA. It doesn't matter.
You're my boy, Gonzo.
Did you hear what I said? I said the age factor. If he was doing that, if he was younger, showing that potential, then I'm like, okay.
What's the difference between
the fact that you're on the back half of your prospect career? Come on, Jay. You can't just tell me that he's going to be producing like that here.
Make me bring up the Mitch Keller conversation.
Gonzo.
But besides Deluch, when we're talking about Breelander, what was it? Baroa. And he had a 14% walk rate. Like, he already has control issues of himself. That was way worse than what Santos had back in the day before he figured himself out. I'm just saying I would have held on to Santos at least until the trade deadline if I am going to deal him, to see if I can get better value at the trade deadline.
In regards to
where everyone's going to be looking for arms.
In regards to Baroa's 14% walk rate, I mean, you could fix that. Look at what Oakland did with Joe Boyle. That's something that you just got to get a volume of innings, get somebody comfortable with their stuff, repeating their mechanics and stuff. In regards to Deloach, What's the difference between being 22 years old with the Chicago White Sox and being 25 years old with the White Sox? They're in the same bracket financially and in the same status with the rebuild. At a certain point, I'm glad he's 25 because now I don't have to wait an extra year and a half or two to see what he's going to become. I can accelerate that process. If he's 22, I've probably got to hold on to him 2 years longer than I need to try to figure it out. Look at how long it took Steele Walker to die in minor leagues before we
Gonzo,
trade him.
what do you think about Corey Lee?
Oh boy,
Just surface level.
I don't know because we barely saw him.
Okay, so you want to see more out of Corey Lee?
No.
You don't.
Why? Why?
Because we already got prospects coming up. So.
But how do you know if you've barely seen him? How do you know that he's not better than the prospects who are in A-ball?
With what we have, I guess. Because we just have Stassi and Maldonado.
Okay, my point is
we already know what we're getting out of him.
Deloach is 1 month older than Corey Lee. I certainly wouldn't say Corey Lee is a finished product. We don't know what Corey Lee is yet on the major league level, just like we don't know what Deloach is. Like, that's my only point. I'm not saying that Deloach is going to be great. I don't know if he'll ever even make the major leagues.
And thank God, Gonzo, he's not young like you want him to be. He's 25. So if he is just kind of mid, the White Sox can do what they want with him.
But the point that Gonzo's trying to make is that you don't want to get a 25-year-old who's kind of mid for a decent relief pitcher who's still young and under control. But again, like, there is no guarantee that Gregory Santos is going to repeat what he did next year. And if you are going to lose 105 games, you don't need a closer. I think they just kind of struck while his value was high, and I think there's probably enough concerns about whatever off the field or in the clubhouse.
And again, for me, it's not. I don't care about 24. So if I have 5 years of control, I still believe that if our philosophy is we're going to be contending in 2 or 3 years, depending on what Getz's whiteboard is predicting, we still have him under control for that time if we haven't traded him by then. But at least I know we can get value later on and not just force him out of here so quickly.
But then his value is 0 if he sucks ass. If now he's your closer and he's having a terrible season, you don't get Baroa or Deloach for him. Then you have to wait till he's 25 or 26 if he gets good again to trade him. It was just, there's no point in having a very good reliever, and we don't know that he's a very good reliever yet. Let's see if we can do it again.
I'm really glad the White Sox struck while the iron is hot. It was the same thing with the Cody Oyer situation.
Yeah, it was a good trade. I think it was a good trade. I would agree that it was a good trade at the right time. It was probably the best move he's made so far as a general manager.
Do you guys have any faith in Fletcher being a major league outfielder?
Yes.
As a fourth outfielder or a starter?
I think he's basically a progressive version of Adam Eaton. I don't think he's a dirtbag. I don't think he's a dirtbag of Adam Eaton. But look, Gonzo, listen, because Slav's not going to listen to me. Maybe you could translate. Look, I think at a certain point you got to get back to some foundational values of baseball. What does Dominic Fletcher do well? He's a good glove, got a good solid approach at the plate, and a itty-bitty, tiny bit of pop. Now, I'm not saying he's going to move the needle for the White Sox, but at a certain point, there is no difference from Dominic Fletcher right now and Andrew Benintendi. So
I would agree with you that I would much rather play Fletcher for his contract and his age every single day than pay Benintendi $75 million to do whatever it was that he did.
The same thing. It's the same thing.
And Fletcher probably gives you better defense.
That's the issue that I have is that I see him as a fourth outfielder, a guy that could be a third outfielder on a very good offensive team. But when you put him with Benny in the lineup and then Nicky Lopez and the young, and then you're like, okay, Eloy really has to produce, and then your catcher's Maldonado. That hole really becomes a really big one with your right fielder has to produce.
You probably got 4 guys in the lineup with a sub 700 OPS. Oh my!
And 5 other guys who I wouldn't be surprised if they were there. That's the sad part.
I love.
But I think he's a fourth.
But
I think he's a fourth outfielder. I think he's actually one of the guys that I think that fans need to keep an eye on him, just because he's one of those guys that if he develops well, he could be a guy that could be here in the next 2 to 3 years because of his age, because of what he could offer.
Yeah,
the
like right
versatility
now,
that
he's
he has.
JB Shuck. He's JB Shuck right now.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that you should be watching
With a chance to get
and
better.
saying if he does well, he will be here in the future. That's the only way that I see it, because he does have some skill. Does have a certain skill set that they needed. And I think again, it's very ironic they brought him in, because when he starts playing, if he plays well and he outshines Benintendi, then you have a problem where fans are going to say, "Wait a minute, this guy's playing for nothing," and Benny's the highest paid White Sox player. That's why I think it's going to be interesting, because I
don't like
think
him
they're
wearing
very similar
7,
as
though.
players.
I can't
That
see
was
them trading
surprising.
Benintendi either.
By the way,
who's going to want that
they're
contract?
exactly, no one's going to want that contract. By the way, were you guys shocked at that? By the way, because I was. How
I don't want
quickly
him
they gave
wearing
away
7.
back number 7. How
I
quickly
can't believe they
away
gave
number 7.
Timo Perez's number away like that. That's a
You're
damn
sick
shame.
too. You're sick too.
I mean, can you
I was
believe?
shocked though.
You're part of the problem.
Well, I'm just saying though, he was the face of the franchise, guys. He was changed the game. He was the face of marketing, and to give his number away right away year one.
But they've done this before. Like they.
Oh yeah.
This I feel like I don't know if I see this in other teams, but I feel like as a Sox fan, because I'm so in tune with it, I feel like every time a decent player leaves or a young kid comes in, they're reusing the same number. Like Gordon Beckham, they got a pretty good number, right? Like they just don't give a shit who wore the previous number. There is one number that we don't see too often, and it might start with a 1 and end in a 3.
Well, that's because guys don't want to get hurt. Everybody who wears that number ends up getting hurt.
Because El Chivo will get their ass.
Yeah. Nobody's wore 14 or 35 either. No,
well,
never.
I think that's the part that I'm actually looking forward to the most, is how good he plays, and if he outplays Benintendi. It's going to be very interesting how they're going to, say, kind of make up for that contract. But again, that's not really on Chris, because that's before his time.
This strikes me with Benintendi specifically. This strikes me as a season where he could just like go off, like in Benintendi numbers go off, and it's just totally meaningless. Like they'll be down 7-1 in the 5th inning, and he'll have like a bases clearing triple or something if anybody can get on base in front. Or like he'll just have good numbers, and it won't mean jack shit for the actual like quality and wins of this team. Before we get out of here, a couple things we want to get to. Before we get to Ozzie, we'll give you the last hurrah down in Chichirivici. But we got to talk about the stadium situation. Lot 78. Maybe we won't get to 78 wins, but maybe we'll get to lot 78 and $1.5 billion in Jerry Reinsdorf's pockets from the city of Chicago to build a brand new stadium on the river. He threw Bridgeport under the bus a little bit. And the
fans.
By the way,
kind of.
Gonzo. So the best part was, I've been arguing this for the past 5 years, and last year I argued with you over and over and over again. And Jerry Reinsdorf used that number of we did not hit the 3 million mark after the World Series. And I've been telling you this.
They didn't hit it in 05 either.
They didn't hit it in 05 or after. So White Sox fans, it's not that I'm blaming them, but there is a precedent on fans don't come here. And here's the part that's interesting. It could be Jerry that's asking now, or it could be Mr. Whoever. But somebody was going to ask the state of Illinois for a brand new stadium because they think that stadium is an issue and the way that it is built and where it's at. But that's the point that I was saying, was that the fans are not innocent on this. The fans have not hit the 3 million mark ever.
I agree with you to an extent. It could have been a more happening neighborhood and more Wrigleyville-like and more blah, blah, blah if Jerry would have invested some of that in the neighborhood around the ballpark, as opposed to building 9 million parking spots that we get tailgaters to go to. And like, that is the area around the ballpark. Like there's 2 bars that you can go to walking distance from the ballpark. Like, would it make sense to be closer to downtown? Would it be maybe you get the average Joe fan or the non-sports fan to come to a game more often? Most likely. But are you going to see that big of a revenue boost? I don't know for sure. There's no right answer. Like everyone people turn everything political, and it's like, oh, this rich man wants to.
Slav, though, it is political because I think if Mayor Daley is not from Bridgeport, the laws in that neighborhood might have been different. I'm going to say this honestly because I've lived it firsthand. I tried opening up a bar after the 2005 World Series in that area. I thought that with the connections that I had, that I'd be able to pull something off. There's been a lot of people that have tried pulling something off, like making it like an entertainment area, just because it's like the obvious of White Sox fans love drinking. There's no bars next to it. And the
Really?
and the White Sox fan and White Sox fans have tried. White Sox try to do something with that, with like the bar that they had across the street from the stadium. But it's like a huge opportunity, and I really think that the White Sox missed their moment in 2005 when I think that everybody started catching on the Wrigley Field kind of vibe, where every team now has like an entertainment area. After like the 2000s, that's where everybody was like going in and like building their own entertainment area. So the only part that I knocked Jerry on is that he kind of cleared his hands off of like, I had nothing to do with this. It's like, well, you guys should have been intuitive enough in the 05s to go in and like build your own entertainment area. You see this place right here, Bomb Burgers, could have been a sponsor of one of the bars, but I can
Jake Berger drinking Bomberger's bourbon.
Here's the part though, you guys laugh about this because Ozzie Guillen, when he saw the news, he was like, Ozzie's not the most politically, savvy person when it comes to like actual details. So he was like, who's going to effing pay that? And I said, well, it gets put into like a tax, and you don't really see like it's not like you're charged for exactly that, but it goes into the state, and the citizens pay for that. And he was like, oh, I don't think that's such a great idea.
There are certain examples of privately funded stadiums, but I don't think that there's one that exists that is like 100% privately funded. No. The Rams owner, Kroenke, when he built the new stadium SoFi in LA, like that was mostly privately funded. I think San Francisco 49ers new stadium is too. People don't understand, and this is just common finance that people don't realize. When you look up somebody's net worth, that doesn't mean that they have that much money that they could just hand over and say, okay, build me a new stadium. Like that's not how that works. Being worth $2 billion doesn't mean you can afford to spend $2 billion. If you have $400,000 in your bank account, that doesn't mean you can just go buy a house tomorrow for $400K and then like everything's good. That's not how that works. Of course, every owner, like it's just common sense. And if people were rich and had their own money, they'd probably say, how can I keep my own money in my own pockets? By asking politicians and taxpayers to partly fund my stadium. It's just the way the world works. I'm sorry that you're broke. And it's crazy that I'm like, it sounds like I'm defending rich people because I'm broke as shit too compared to Jerry Reinsdorf. But like, it's just common sense. Rich people stay rich by spending other people's money.
And it's happening in Arizona, guys. If you guys see, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up to date with that, but it's the same situation in Arizona where the owner said, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to be in Phoenix. Saying we might not move the team out of Arizona, but Phoenix might not be the city that we're in because they're battling right now a situation where they're trying to, make a stadium and make a deal. But it's just interesting because I think that the way that I would have done it to throw back the $3 million at the people was go compete, be really good for a couple certain amount of years, and then say, hey, by the way, I've won 100 games for 3 years, even without winning a World Series, but I've won 100 games for 3 years, okay? And nobody's coming to my stadium. You guys have drawn less than 3 million people a year, and now I am forced to either get a new stadium, move to another city, or have the city build me a new stadium. And that way you could look in the mirror and say, wow, we might be part of the problem. It's very hard to tell that storyline when you have not been able to do that. When you have not, and that number of the $100 million player contract, at this point, if I was the White Sox head of PR, I would be like, let's just sign somebody for $100 million, because it's like they keep coming back to that. Yeah, it's a number that people kind of like, everyone's done it at this point.
Even the Royals now have signed 200-some million with Bobby Witt.
Correct. So at this point, it looks very interesting. But I think that stadium, which I still think is a great stadium, I just think it's just part of the nature of sports business today. I think if it wasn't Jerry, it would have been somebody. And I'm going to be honest, man. People think that the team moving from the city of Chicago, which I don't want them to do that, regardless of what my feelings are towards the Sox personally, because I think like a city losing a team is just like the worst thing that could possibly happen to a city in general. The Sox could realistically move to another city. okay? Because other cities want teams, and they're going to do everything possible, and their citizens are willing to go and spend a astronomical amount of money for them to have that new city, to have a team there. So is Jerry playing the game? Absolutely. So, but the fact that the team can get moved, it's not like it's impossible. There's 2 teams in the city. You know, the Sox have already been on the chopping block once before in the 90s. Jerry knows the game very well. I know that he wouldn't be making a move like this unless he had talked to Rob Manfred before. If they have an owner lined up, maybe the owner's the one that's saying, hey, I'm going to make this deal by have a stadium in place. So it's very scary to think like, oh, this team would never move. And then you're like, wait a minute, the Sox are in Nashville, Portland, whatever other city. It's never going to be better than Chicago. And then we're going to be dealing like, oh my God, what we don't have a team anymore. And that's the part where people I don't think are being as realistic as how closely that could happen. So I'm open for them negotiating and kind of figuring it out in between. I even threw one out there on Twitter. Bears, White Sox stadium combined. You know, like throw something.
White Sox.
It didn't work in Oakland.
It didn't work in Oakland, but again, that was really, really well poorly built. But I'm just saying, like, I know that there's a lot of things out there, but the conversations need to happen.
Wait, time out. How can you say it didn't work when both teams won a championship in the stadium?
Well, I mean, it looks like horrible now, but I'm saying it didn't work for them back then.
Yeah, and look, they've now both left Oakland.
Yeah, it wasn't something that,
we could leave again. Let's just win a couple rings and leave.
So, Junior, to your point, that would be the logical thing to do. When you develop a sustained winner, then you can turn around and say, well, the fans haven't showed up. Yeah. We've been winning. We've been competing, blah, blah, blah. We still can't get to this 3 million threshold, etc. But obviously, I think at this point, it's pretty common knowledge. The urgency for Jerry is as soon as this stadium situation is done, he's either selling or finding the next buyer or figuring out, what the process is to pass along this team. He's not going to be owning this team, I don't think, much longer. I don't have any concrete information, but it's all adding up from what we've heard and from what we know. As soon as the stadium situation is figured out, that now makes the team much more easy to sell and much more valuable to a potential buyer who has the money to do it, knowing I don't have anything to worry about. I buy this team and I can do whatever I want.
I get you. So you saying like this is just another step of Jerry stepping away, a step closer of stepping away?
Yeah, absolutely. If none of this is happening until like 5 years from now, I can't remember off the top of my head when the lease is up for guaranteed rate, but like there's no urgency. Why all of the sudden are we having these conversations? And when you piece together everything else that's happened over the last couple of years with Jerry and what we know about, shares that he's sold off or what he's trying to do with the regional sports network or blah, 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 it all adds up to the stadium situation is the hanging chad. That's the one kind of loose end that he has to figure out before he can just offload this team.
And
it's
a financial.
Yeah. Exactly.
How much space is there to build off of on that the South Loop, the 78 lot?
I can look it up quick.
For like attractions.
I didn't even know if that was there. But again,
it's 62 acres total.
Okay.
So if you're going to sell your house and your house is renovations or it's a new location, it's easier to go and talk negotiation wise. I also think it might get more suitors.
Hey, Slav, is the metro system going through there too?
Yeah, so. There's a stop right on Roosevelt, right?
Yep. And
you have the potential for the water taxi, which would be pretty dope, where you can like park in the city, have some beers in River North, jump on a boat, go to the ballpark. Like there's a lot that makes sense for that spot specifically.
Oh my God. Can you imagine like Lower Wacker having a McCovey Cove type of feel to it?
I'm trying to find the lot size for guaranteed rate.
No, I'm serious. Like people with kayaks out in the back, like you don't want to have like a wall too high to where people out in the water can't see the field of play, but you want it to be like, like they're a part of the game.
So guaranteed rate sits on 70 acres. That includes all the parking.
Okay. So you said he was from Venezuela. I thought it sounded like he's from Mars right now.
Junior's just It's like 12:30 in Chichirivici. If you're just tuning in, Junior's like at a lake house in the middle of nowhere in Venezuela. No
Pull
joke.
the antenna out of the phone.
Crystal clear waters. Like I gotta pull this up. Like this is what videos like. This is what we're getting from the Guillen family. Like the gorgeous waters of Chichirivici. So the fact that he's even on this podcast, good for him.
He's the GOAT.
And this is the part where we're going to let him talk about Ozzie and the whole Caribbean series, and he just blew it. Wow. All right, we'll give you guys last thoughts on the stadium before we move on. Hopefully Junior comes back and we can wrap this baby up.
I know when I went to St. Louis to see Ballpark Village, I was really impressed by it and was jealous. And that's what I wanted to see at the guaranteed rate through the years, was that kind of a setup. I mean, it sucks if they move, but at the end of the day, I would love that drop back. I think that whole setup would be just change. It would change the game. There you go. There's the hashtag for you.
I'm not gonna lie. Like people get caught up with the backdrop in PNC when the sun's going down. Like I like walking the concourse at the rate when I'm at the game. Can you imagine walking?
Because you don't have to watch the game on the field.
That's true. That's sick, but you're absolutely right. But can you imagine walking that concourse and you got the buildings, open air, like it's July night? Like that is a good opportunity to see the beauty of Chicago, and then like you could see it transform from the coolness of the spring, and then you get to fall, and then hopefully we're in the playoffs and everybody's swinging black towels all downtown. Like we got an opportunity to create something
every 10 years.
And then not to mention
ice fishing on the Chicago River.
Connor Bedard to be probably 8-9 years in the game, probably had a Stanley Cup. He'll be a legend. Can you imagine Connor Bedard throwing out the first pitch at that stadium?
It'd be electric.
Yeah.
It would be electric.
All right, Junior, go ahead. We want to get to the last thoughts in the show. Junior is joining us live from Venezuela. Did you freeze again?
No, I'm right here right now.
Okay,
I frozen a couple times. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you enough. So we'll give you the last word. Tell us about the Caribbean series. Tell us about how Ozzie got into it, and about 2 extra rings, 2 more rings, baby.
Yeah, 2 more rings. So Ozzie got into it. His team, the Tiburones de La Guaira, had a slow start with a team that was built to win. Ronald Acuna was on the team. Players asked for Ozzie. I was reached out to myself, my family, to get Ozzie back on the horse. We convinced Ozzie. We made the deal. Ozzie flew back within like 72 hours. Took a hold of the team that was 4 games under 500. Got the team into the round robin, which is like a head-to-head, which is like everyone. 6 teams play like 16 games in total. He went like 12-4, won that. Lost 1 game in the finals out of 5 games. Won that. First time in 38 years, so people were very happy that he was able to accomplish that goal, one that he had personally for a very, very, very long time. And then he went to the Caribbean Series, kind of like, hey, we're excited to be here. And his team was really, really good in the sense of had great pitching. And Ozzie still has it with a great pitching staff and a great bullpen. He can work some magic. Put a very, very good display of managing. The best part was that Ozzie had a very good analytical team. I can guarantee better than a lot of teams in the big leagues. He combined both of them. Very dangerous with the steals, went to hit and run, pitchers and fatigue, and kind of using his gut and the stats. So it was even more dangerous. So he's probably managed his best in the past 2 months that I've seen him in a very, very long time. He had fun again, and the players loved this. So he won both. So they got 2 rings, and it was very interesting because Ozzie, was in front of the media, and he talked about all the great players that he had and guys that were in the tournament that had not been signed yet. He was very vocal about the situation in Latin America and young players signing, and that he was saying that he's having fun in the game of baseball again, managing, and that Major League Baseball looked like, again, it's still Major League Baseball, but he was noticing that a lot of managers were not having a lot of fun because the game had become too X's and O's, and you don't see that many moves again, and lineups from the top to the bottom. But it was a great experience. I was very grateful that he was able to get that off his checklist. The Emmy's still on the table. He still hasn't gotten that yet, but now this one's off the checklist. And you know what? It comes back to, for him, when he didn't get the managerial job, he was a little disappointed because it was like, I don't have it anymore. I'm not good enough. And again, I think that had he gotten the job, even Ozzie being a really good manager, I still see them losing 85, 90 plus games. Like the team just wasn't very good. And it would have been a very bad ending for Ozzie in Chicago. And for him to go back here, them ask for him to be able to come manage in a very, very high pressure situation and do so well is the closing of a chapter for him. And now the goal is to win multiple ones. They're trying to build a winning culture. It was 38 years that they had not won a championship. So now Ozzie is known here as a curse breaker. He broke 88 years with the Chicago White Sox. He broke 38 years with the Venezuelan League Championship. And he actually broke a 15-year drought that Venezuela had in the Caribbean Series, which they go play every single year. So Ozzie is definitely working some curses. Yeah, and then my son also, that's a great picture.
Send me that. Hey, send me that.
My son also, Ozzie Jr., the other junior, he actually became like this little like meme because he was on the field after every game. Yeah, he was like a mascot where people were saying that he was a good luck charm because from the moment that he showed up to the first game, he went on a 14-game run. And he's like he's just living his life. But he became like a little mini celeb. But again, winning, Ozzie has one thing. When Ozzie clicks with a roster, winning is in his DNA, and that's something that you can't measure with in the game of baseball. But it's just like when everything clicks and the team is there, he finds a way to do it. And he built culture, and that's what this team wanted. And real culture. It's just funny, like we were talking about earlier about the acronym. And somebody having an acronym and seeing how Ozzie approached it. Again, a lot of one-on-one conversations. And the funny part was, all the things that they said that Ozzie wasn't going to be good enough when he was with the White Sox, he's doing it now there. The oldest guy on the team, it might be 27 years old, other than the really older veterans. He had Micah Garcia, third baseman, Kansas City Royals, Micah Rocchio, shortstop, hopefully for the Cleveland Guardians, Acuna, a few pitchers that are prospects as well. So a lot of young players, a lot of young guys in this new young game of baseball. And Ozzie was able to get to them, to get them to buy in. And also another Chicago big name was Carlos Zambrano was his pitching coach. It was actually Ozzie and Big Z. Big Z was very interesting when he would go and change the pitchers and talk to them. He was very intimidating. He definitely fixed the bullpen. I think they were just more scared of him than anything. But they kept it simple, man. Play good baseball, fundamentals, drive the runner in from third, move the runner running on good timing, on pitchers, and then throw strikes. And they try to keep it simple, combined with the analytics and getting guys in, and they won. So good times, and definitely another championship for the trophy room.
Yes.
It was cool to follow along. It was cool to see all the tweets, the videos, the pictures, all the stuff that you were sending, Junior, and all the stuff from various media outlets down there, and even Major League Baseball, kind of following along, especially as we got to the Caribbean Series. I was so happy for you. I was so happy for also an Adela to be around and like to be able to see, Abuelo doing it.
That was
pretty
huge.
cool, man.
I think that was the biggest part. Obviously, people were asked, some people are like, why were you in the dugout? I was able to be in the dugout because I was actually an assistant to the general manager. So when Ozzie came in and we rebuilt the roster, so I was like, I could be there. So it wasn't like I was just there just because I wanted to. I was actually the assistant general manager when we went to the Caribbean Series as well, the liaison because of the visa situation. So we were able to be there. So that was a huge thing. And for my son to be there and his other grandson to be born in the middle of it. It was just great. It's just it's fun to enjoy the game of baseball. Again, baseball will humble you. And we went back to this on how Major League Baseball is not using the Caribbean leagues as much as they should for development. Guys like Oscar Cola should have been playing this year. Gavin Sheets should have been playing this year, and just to develop their skills and getting them there. And when you look at the list of guys that have developed or have been able to get big league jobs and maintain big league jobs because they play in those leagues, it's huge. And it's a different game, man. When we're talking about pressure, we were telling Rocchio, like, if you're able to play in this series, There's 45,000 people in the new Venezuelan stadium. Everyone's screaming. Everyone's going nuts. You're going to have no pressure playing Cleveland White Sox in April. You won't, because it's just the atmosphere is so different. This is like playoff atmosphere in the United States just during regular season games. So it's a great development skill-wise for the players, and they were able to pull it off. So for Ozzie, I think now, even when people talk about like, well, Ozzie in the big leagues, I think now he really does not interview. I think right now for Ozzie to get called for a job, it's going to have to be like how much and how many years, and what am I able to control and who can I bring. That he won't ever interview after accomplishing this, just because he's like, it was. We didn't know this until it happened, but it was him and Tommy Lasorda are the only two managers to ever win a league in the winter, the Caribbean Series, and then win a World Series. So it's not that common in the sense, even back in the day when it was a very normal thing to work across all three leagues. So he's very happy, and I'm just glad he was able to get that done at his 60th birthday. So now the ending, and then obviously something he can't control, which is getting his number retired, which would definitely be a something great to do.
It was, like I said, cool to watch. We're proud of you, proud of him, proud of the family. Dude, when I saw the video of like his speech to the team after they won in La Guaira, right?
Yeah.
So that speech in the clubhouse where everyone kind of went crazy afterwards, I quote tweeted it right away. I was like, the Padres and the White Sox fucked up, man. All this talent, and you had this incredible manager at your fingertips. Both times you interviewed him, you had him in house, you could have told him it's yours, and they both fucked up.
Sometimes things work in mysterious ways. I think that in the game with the uniform on in the clubhouse, connecting to players, there's still no one better. And I think the biggest test was he had a guy that they call him the wild horse for a reason, Yasiel Puig. Very interesting human being, a lot of passion. When I mean passion, this guy was hitting singles and trying to go to second. So how do you get all that energy in and reel it in for the positive? When Ozzie came here, Yasiel was, still kind of like they were calling strikes or balls. He'd get a little testy and argue with umpires, and he was able to get all that energy and really have them focus on like the positives of, hey guys, you guys get out, don't worry about it, get them the next at bat, like focus the energy and good. And I think that Ozzie, it's funny because I think guys just market things now a little bit better, and they use acronyms and they use lettering and they have a way better way to express it. Ozzie just does it old school style, like where he can connect with his players and really takes them to the next level of using his veteran players. Like in this case was Alcides Escobar, and then bringing him in. And the crazy part, man, the wildest part was when we were in the finals in the Caribbean Series, there was like 9 Venezuelan players in the stands. Miggy, Salvador Perez, a lot of guys that are currently probably going to be part of the next WBC team for the World Classic. And they're all like either want to coach like Miggy, or they're like, you need to be the manager. And I think that's the biggest testament, like for any skipper, is when players say, you need to play, you need to lead us. You need to be the guy that, makes the lineup for us.
Right. And these guys aren't over the hill, OJ. These are still guys that are producing at the highest level. Like, I know Miggy's done, but it's not like he's been out of the game for 5 years. I mean, he's just freshly retired. At a certain point when they can still look at your pops and be like, I need you to hoist me a trophy on the other side. That means a lot.
Correct. And winning at the end of the day for a lot of these guys, you want to get paid. And I think that the part where we're talking about White Sox, and this is the part that's interesting, when I talk about winning and losing, and you can lose games but still win. And the White Sox, one of the things that's concerned me to end this now, and this is what we're trying to change the culture of Tiburon, is where it was a culture of losing. They went from being this great, awesome team where Ozzie was a 2-time MVP in the finals, and they went to 5 finals in like 8 years, and it was just like this dynasty in the 80s. And then it just died and fizzled out and became like a laughing stock. And then they didn't win for 38 years. And then bringing that back of like, we're expected to be in the playoffs every year. We're expecting to compete. We want the young talent to develop. We want people to come to the stands, to the stadium and scream. And you're building that culture of, even if you don't win the championship, you're building to win every single step of the way. And that's a mindset that for a major league franchise, when Ozzie came to the Chicago White Sox back in 2004, he did not just change the big league team. He changed him and Kenny. He helped Kenny change that mentality of what are we going to do as an organization from top to bottom. Like, we want to win in single A. We want to win in double A, because when those guys are coming up, they're going to come up with a winning mentality. I don't want losers on my team. And that's something that Ozzie would owe. And he always get critiqued. Like, we trade for guys. He's like, is this guy a winner or is this guy a loser? And that's why guys like Agent Brzezinski worked out so well for him, and Jermaine Dye worked out so well, because they wanted to win before anything. So I think that right now, the situation the White Sox are in, yes, you're developing players, but you have to build that culture of you're going off on losing a game if you blow a game in the 8th inning because you made 2 errors, even if you're going to lose 100 games. Like, that's where you build that culture. And unfortunately, that's something that Rick Renteria was doing here, and I think that he was canned early enough. That mindset of those guys like Ozzie Guillen, those are the type of guys that build those cultures from the beginning, and that's the type of manager he is, and that's what's going to be his legacy.
Good stuff. Final thoughts before we get out of here? Any things that we learned? Any shout outs?
I just want to give a shout out to the crew. You guys, it's been awesome talking about my favorite baseball team, the Chicago White Sox. It's been great. Got to give a shout out to my coworker Nick. He's been feeling under the weather. He still gave the company and myself some quality hours. Really admirable stuff. Appreciate you. See you tomorrow at work, Nick. But at the end of the day, I just want the White Sox to do what Nick did. Get back to the blue collar, white knuckle mentality. So what? You're gonna look at the box score. It's not gonna look as good. Those 6-4 games where you won, even though you committed 2 errors, that's gonna mean something in the long run. At a certain point, what's your identity? What are you gonna be built on? Are you gonna be built on a revolving door of journeymen, mercenaries, sell swords? Like, at a certain point, you gotta build a foundation, and I hope Chris Getz in the front office are starting to get back towards that, because Rick Hahn was just a lawyer, and he was talking to me. Rick Hahn was just a lawyer, and he was talking to me and other fans like we were just clients. So at a certain point, I'm tired of feeling stupid.
Gonzo?
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to it, and that's my last thought was the defense. If I remember the stat right, we only had a top 15 defense. I think it was twice since they won the World Series. And if that's the focus going forward that Getz is recreating here, putting a more emphasis on that defense, then I want to see it. I want to see it throughout. I'm not going to agree with what he's put through this offseason, the first 6 months on the job, but I'm here to watch the game, and I want to see difference. If I don't see that, then I know where he wasn't the right man for the job.
Wait, Gonzo, quick question.
Yeah.
Gonzo, quick question. Was he a part of those 2 defensive teams that were in the top 15?
I'd go back and look at the years again.
Because the reason he has a job in the big leagues is because of his defense. So that's interesting if he feels that way.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and look at that one for you. That's a good point.
Report back for the next episode.
Yes. But yeah, that's my thoughts for this episode. Shout outs wise, I got to shout out our guy here in the chat, Juan Diego Montenegro, because he's been lighting it up all night. Our boy Juan. If I wasn't getting texts from Junior about the Caribbean, they were coming from Juan. So thanks, Juan, for the emphasis over this offseason.
We had Caleb in the chat too, Gonzo.
Yes, I saw our loyal Twins fan in the chat.
Is this one of you guys' buddies? You guys know him?
We tweet.
Oh, okay. Y'all tweet.
I'm a co-commissioner in his dynasty league.
I mean, he said under 65 wins, and I mean,
he's lying. He's lying.
Okay,
but I was gonna say, besides Juan, I gotta give a shout out to the Guillens. I think Junior said it best, though. I'm not gonna say anything else than the words that came out of his mouth, because again, he said it best, and I'm proud and happy for not only Senior having that moment with what he's been through over the past decade, but for the fact that he got to share that moment with his family and that whole experience, especially for Oso. That's a very young memories to have, and I'm glad that they got to share it all together. But ultimately, in the end, I'm glad we're all back Season 2 debut went well, guys. I can't wait for the remaining part of this season to come.
I can wait. There's gonna be a lot of bad baseball. I can wait. Junior, what you got?
Man, I season 2. I hope. I'm not saying I'm hope. I know we're going to be better than the White Sox in this season 2.
The bar is low.
Again, I think that it's going to be a very telling season for White Sox fans because fandoms are going to be tested. So if you are a White Sox fan, we're going to be here. We're going to tell you the truth. We're excited to be back on. Baseball's back. And yeah, again, exciting times. Baseball started for us a lot quicker than we thought. But just excited to be here and back doing this with you guys. I know we've been patiently waiting, and this season is going to be an interesting one because I think there's a lot of things that we don't know what's going to happen, and I just see that as an opportunity. So looking forward to it.
I got nothing because I hate you all. I hate this team. It's going to be miserable. Fast, fucking ass Sox team. That's what it stands for. It was fun. No, it's always fun chatting up with you guys. I mean, shout out to Ozzie and the Guillen family. Like you guys are just awesome, man. I loved following along as the videos and the pictures and stuff were pouring in. Like I'm just so happy for you guys, happy for the family, happy for Oni, happy, healthy family. And I can't wait to see Ozzie back in Chicago so he can freeze his ass off. We can have a cigar and drink some rum. He sent me a video from the beach yesterday with coconut water and rum, and I hate that guy. I'm so jealous. I need a vacation bad.
I have a question. So what season was it where Demari Desponge was on the team? What year was that?
19, right? That's Spanye? Odrisamer?
Odrisamer Despagne. I'm just saying. So this year, that's our bar.
It was 19.
Are they going to be better?
It was 19. The White Sox went 72 and 89 that year.
That's their goal.
We have to win 73 games. We have to win 73 games.
I'm just saying, though, because, again, that team was like the beginning. That was the build. That was the Ardemala Desponge year.
Let's win 73 games.
All right. I'm going to go through real quick. I just pulled up on Baseball Reference their top 12 players by WAR. Giolito had a good year. Moncada, that was his career year. TA. James McCann was an all-star, right? I think that was that year.
Yep, was that year.
Was it 19? Good Lord. James McCann was an all-star, so he was your fourth best player. Aaron Bummer was your fifth best player by WAR, above Jose Abreu, and then Ivan Nova, and Evan Marshall, and Yolmer Sanchez, and Jimmy Cordero. Holy shit, that was a bad team. That was when everyone was pumped for Wellington Castillo, and we signed Yonder Alonso so we could not sign the actual guy that they wanted to sign. What's his name again? Manuel Machado. I think he's okay.
No.
He's solid.
But yes.
Yeah. I'm taking the under. 2024 will be a worse record than 2019. Put it on.
Wow.
I'll put it on the record right now. I don't see 73 wins for this team.
Ardemala Desponge.
73
Yeah.
By the way, one of the all-time names, Odrisamer Despagne. Fucking.
Everything I think about, every time I think about him, I think about you. I'm just saying, you've worked some hard seasons. You've grinded some hard seasons,
bro. I'm gonna text the group chat after this. I have it saved in my phone. One of the most proud projects I've ever worked on. They put me in charge of the hype video for 2019. So this is in the middle of the rebuild. This is before they got good. In 2018, they went 62 and 100. And they're like, yeah, give me a hype video for 2019. The baddest hype video you ever saw for a 100-loss team. Yolmer Sanchez was all up in that thing. It was sexy. James Shields, Yolmer Sanchez, Adam Engel running into the wall in center field. I'm going to text you guys because it's badass. All right. That is episode 1, season 2, the debut of the Blackout Show. For Gonzo, for Junior, for Jay, I am Slav. Thank you for watching. We'll see you sometime soon. Spring training opens up Friday. Cactus League. Let's do it. Let's try to win 73 games. It won't happen, but good night.